This is a bookball summary of the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. We all want to improve and better ourselves. It's what makes us human. This may be because we want to improve our physical or mental health. We have these pictures in our heads of the places we want to be and the people we see ourselves as becoming. If we want to improve our physical health, we may think that going for a short run or trip to the gym will suffice. Or we order in a healthy food shop instead of reaching for the phone to order a takeaway. Some people order a self-help book to try and think about ways to improve themselves. There are countless examples of people who have done these things and not stuck to them. It's one thing going for a run, but it's another thing entirely to keep going for runs time and time again. The healthy food shop may sit in the fridge or the cupboards and never get made. And that self-help book? It actually needs to get read in order to be of any help at all. Writer James Clear thinks that the atomic habits are essential to implementing healthy changes to your lifestyle, and he dissects what makes these habits important with 7 easy-to-follow points. Number 1. Small habits turn into big ones. Just as we would like to start implementing constructive and healthy habits into our lives, we must first rationalise how we came to have so many unhealthy habits in the first place. James Clear gives the example of a passenger plane that changes its course by a few feet whilst on a journey through the air to show how we develop small habits into our lives. Neither the passengers on the plane nor the pilot notice this subtle shift in direction. By the end of the long journey, however, the plane is miles from its destination. Clear uses this example as a metaphor for how small and negligible changes in our day-to-day routines can have significant long-term impacts. We do not notice tiny changes in our lives. This, in turn, is why we tend to give up on long-term goals in the short term. If we go on a long run, we will not see a difference in our bodies the next day. Alternatively, if we eat pizza, then we will not gain weight overnight. However, it is not to say that both of these eventualities will be reached if we continue to do these things, these small habits. If we go for many runs every day, we will see the difference in our bodies before too long, and if we eat a pizza every night, we will gain weight. But how do we start implementing small habits? Habits we will actually stick to? Well, we need to first know how habits are built. Number 2. Habits come from automated, learnt behaviours. Habits can be, as James Clear describes, as simple as instinctively reaching for a light switch. This is because a habit is a behaviour that has been repeated so many times that it now happens automatically. Simple habits are learnt after time because they either result in something successful or they teach us to avoid things that are unsuccessful or dangerous. These habits become automated. However, if simple habits result in pleasure, then they can also be unhealthy. The endorphin response in our brains after eating a slice of pizza, for example, can mean that we habitually will start eating a pizza without thinking about the consequences. James Clear suggests that there is a cue or trigger that forces our brain to act on habit. Stepping into a dark room, for example, will instinctively engage a response in your hands to reach for a light switch. While if it is part of your morning routine to drink coffee as soon as you wake, then you will habitually walk to switch on the kettle to satisfy your craving for caffeine. Once you know how habits work and how they are automated and instinctive response driven, then you can begin to implement healthy habits into your daily routine. Number 3. To build new habits, you need a solid plan of action. One of the best ways to implement automated habits, as James Clear suggests, to make the habits as visible as possible. If you want to learn the guitar, then leave the guitar in your living room, in full view, instead of stored away in a cupboard. If changing your environment doesn't sufficiently change your habits, then Clear suggests perfecting triggers with what is known as implementation intentions. This is a process of moving beyond vague intentions and making a clear plan of action. Instead of only pretending to play the guitar, for example, make a schedule of times when you will definitely play the guitar. The more times you do this and the more you stick to the schedule, the easier it will be for your brain to subconsciously adapt to a new routine. These implementation intentions can be applied to almost anything. Changing your environment, however, should be a first port of call. If your plan is to lose weight, then how about instead of just buying unhealthy foods, you remove all unhealthy foods from your cupboards to make room for the new healthier foods? Subtle changes to your environment and a solid plan of action will help to engineer and implement healthy habits into your daily routine. Number 4. Make your habits attractive. Humans, as James Clear suggests, are motivated by the anticipation of reward. This, in short, means that if we are not rewarded by our actions, then we are unlikely to continue to do them. Dopamine is the chemical hormone produced by our brains when we experience something that is pleasurable. Bad habits are often pleasurable because they release dopamine to our bodies. Eating a slice of pizza, watching Netflix and drinking alcohol all elicit the same chemical reaction. But what if I could tell you that healthy habits could also release dopamine in our brains? By making something look more attractive than it actually is, we can engineer a release of dopamine. Clear suggests a method called temptation bundling, which essentially links a behaviour that you think is important but unappealing to a behaviour that you're drawn to. This may include combining activities that you would usually do in your downtime with activities such as going to the gym. Clear says, find a way of making those unattractive but important tasks enjoyable, and you'll be surfing a wave of dopamine and creating positive habits at the same time. Number 5. Make habits easy to adopt. As James Clear has made clear, making habits attractive can make them easier to stick to. But another way of keeping habits is to make them easier to adopt. If we think of all the bad habits we have, they are all easy to adopt. Scrolling through social media for hours on end and staying up late watching television are easy to do. And combined with releasing dopamine, they become easy to stick to. Clear has some steps to making positive habits easier to adopt. Firstly, he suggests reducing friction. In his own words, friction is a two-way process. You can reduce friction to turn a beneficial behaviour into a habit, but you can also increase friction if you want to kill a bad habit. If you want to cut out all the television binging, then implement steps to making the behaviour not possible. This can be achieved by simply unplugging the TV or removing the batteries from the remote. Bad habits are easy to iron out if you stop them at the source. Equally, you can apply friction to creating good habits by making an easy 2-minute rule. This makes the activity feel manageable. Instead of reading a whole book in one sitting, just read one chapter at a time, every day before you go to bed. Or make sure you have at least a bit of salad with every meal you eat. If you simplify the tasks, they can easily become good and achievable habits. Number 6. Make your productive habits immediately satisfying. This sounds like an oxymoron, right? Well, not exactly. Good habits don't always need to be in service of a long-term payoff. They can be rewarding in the short term too. James Clear gives a very simple example of adopting personal hygiene. We should all wash our hands after using the lavatory, but sometimes we might forget. Making washing your hands a satisfying ritual after using the lavatory will encourage our brains to do it without thinking. Washing your hands with nice smelling soap and warm water is a satisfying and pleasurable experience, and something that will release dopamine from our brains. However, as Clear suggests, making good behaviour satisfying can be difficult. This is because it takes time to see the results of good behaviours. Trying to see the positives of a good behaviour can make it satisfying. Saving money is a prime example of this. Instead of spending $50 on a takeaway, put it in a savings account named Holiday Fund. Seeing the money build in the fund will be an immediately satisfying thing to behold, and in doing so, you will avoid a bad behaviour. Number 7. Keep your good habits on track. Making good habits is one thing. Sticking to them is another entirely. So, how can we remain accountable for our good habit building? Well, James Clear suggests a method called habit tracking. So, pick up a pen and paper and get ready to track those good habits. Keeping your habits logged in a journal or a diary will make it easier to see your progress. Habit tracking is also a habit in and of itself, and is immediately satisfying to see your habits pay off. Keeping a log or journal of your healthy habits by crossing them off will make you feel good and keep you motivated. Making good habits is a lengthy process, but it doesn't need to be boring. Keeping track of your habits can be a fun, entertaining and rewarding way of sticking to them. In no time at all, you will have made a number of drastic changes to your daily routine with positive and life-changing habits. What's your most important key takeaway? Please comment down below and share the video if you like it. Thank you, and until next time.